Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Thank you for joining me. My name's Lauren Risley, host of the Halcyon Show. How are you doing? It's been a minute. I think I said on a previous live stream that the next video I uploaded or produced would be an interview or would be one of these fully fledged, videos that has some production to it, and it would appear as though I have lied. So I apologize to anyone that was expecting something a little bit more produced, in which case stay tuned. I will get around to it eventually once my job stops kicking my ass and life becomes less of a persistent kick to the dick. However, I did want to go live to talk about something that I've never really... we'll get to that, Charlie. I promise. In fact, if anyone's watching this, the only reason I do these live is because recording them and uploading them is just a pain in the ass, and just doing them live means that they're up and they're done and all the rest of it. So please don't feel that you have to sit on this one, because what I will probably end up doing is, I lie all the time. I'm a dishonest person. I'm a fucking, apparently. If you ask anybody, dishonest. It's definitely considering, I've been in trouble for being dishonest. That's what I get in trouble for all the time. Not speaking my mind and not trying to be as honest as I can. Definitely not that. Anyways, don't feel that you have to watch along on this. Okay, I'm going to explore this a couple of different ways, and the reason for that is because I want to make sure that the intent behind it isn't to go, I'm joining a lynch mob of people who are going after a choice that most people would have taken. I also don't want to be on the bandwagon of people that are just going, yay, because I think it's a bit more complicated than that. So I wanted to start by kind of saying what this is not going to be about, which is I'm not really interested in going after the choice. Her name escapes me now, but the choice of what prompted this is the fact that Linkin Park have reformed. After I think 7 years, the band has decided that they're going to be touring next year, having released an album, and they have cast a new singer as a lead / co-singer. I'm not interested in talking about whether or not it's a good choice. She might be amazing, she might suck. That's immaterial to me. What I'm really here to talk about is the fact that a choice was made to do something that I fundamentally disagree with. And the first part of the video, though, is quantifying why I feel like I'm allowed to have this opinion. First of all, I'm a fan, but not just a fan. I'm a lifelong fan of Linkin Park, and they have indelibly had an effect on me that is unrivaled by absolutely anything else except for my parents. Like, apart from those two people, no one thing, entity, aspect of my experience in life has had the influence on me that Linkin Park has. And I want to go into some detail, because the other thing that I never did, because it always felt cheap and it always felt wrong to me, was I never talked about Chester Bennington's passing. I never did a video on it. I never did a comment on it. I did post about it because I was genuinely fucking gutted when it happened. And it still breaks my heart, and it still doesn't quite make sense to me that he's not around anymore. But at the time, it felt like the outpouring made his work synonymous with his death. And I always thought that was unfair, because Chester Bennington's work and his life gave me so much more than just what people now want to associate him with, which is his death. So I want to quantify why I'm feeling this first, and then we'll get to the actual topic at hand. So just to start with, the first time I ever encountered Linkin Park, I'll remember this moment vividly, which was in my first foray into music, which was I got an album one year for my birthday. I think it was my 10th or 11th birthday. And one was, it was a 2-for-1 deal from HMV. And one was from Will Smith, Millennium. And that was the album I was actually really excited to listen to, because I was a Will Smith fan at the time, because I was 10. And then the other one was from this band called Linkin Park, who I'd never heard of before. And the album cover looked really messy and discombobulated and scruffy and all sorts. And, I didn't really give it a chance at first. And then one day, I was sitting downstairs prior to going to school. I think I'd have been in secondary, or what do they used to call it? Middle school back in the day. And I was watching Kerrang. And this is back in the days when music videos were almost exclusively on TV. The internet hadn't really taken hold yet in terms of video content. It was more a communication and information tool than and a repository of documentation. Hadn't really taken off as far as a visual medium is concerned. So you're flicking through the music channels and you develop tastes as, you know, some people liked Kiss, some people like the MTV, some of the people like VH1. I always was a little bit more partial to Kerrang, and I was sitting there one day and I was sitting on this big comfy yellow chair in my uniform, not really minding, and In the End came on. And I remember watching it again as a 10 or 11 year old being just, what is this? What is going on? And this guy's got this fucking voice, and then you've got the rapper, and you've got all this just visual imagery, and it was just crazy. And from that moment, I became fucking obsessed with Linkin Park. I ran upstairs, got the album. I remember listening to that fucking thing on repeat, and every time somehow I'd develop a new favourite song on the album. It would shift from one to the other until it got to the point where I genuinely still hold Hybrid Theory as one of the albums in my life that there's not a bad song on it. Some people can have a criticism of Cure for the Itch, which is fine, but I still love that again in retrospect, because then the theme crept up on subsequent albums that Johan gets a track all to himself that he can just go crazy on the decks with. I love that concept. But and by the way, I've made notes to make sure I don't just ramble. Okay, I'm hopefully going to get to all the points, and we'll get there. So Hybrid Theory, right, was this, for those who haven't heard it or haven't heard it in a long time, is it's nu metal, which means it's still in its primordial phase. You know, it's still taking off. You've got Papa Roach and Limp Bizkit and a lot of these other bands that are sort of hitting the airwaves. And then Linkin Park is sort of the preeminent nu metal band, because what was great to me about Linkin Park is it had this generic feel, but it spoke to you individually. Of course, teenagers and angst and all that stuff go hand in hand. But Linkin Park's songs on Hybrid Theory and then in subsequent albums had this way of validating you. You felt it was okay to feel how you felt. It was okay to feel angry and yet sad. It was okay to feel like that anger was okay to express, and that sadness was okay to sort of to carry with you. And it was that thing of, as a teenager at least, it was hard figuring out all this shit. And then this album comes along that embodies how you're feeling and lets you know that not only is it okay, but that other people feel that way. It was this connection. It kind of fostered connectivity amongst people that, even though we all felt like outcasts, and frankly, people forget that when I was a kid, Linkin Park was successful, but it wasn't popular to be a Linkin Park fan. The second people found out I was a Linkin Park fan, it's like, oh, so you're a goth, you're a grebe, you're an emo, are you? And it's that thing that, like, it kind of not radicalized you, but it certainly made you feel like you were excluded from everything else and yet welcomed by this. It was a feeling unlike anything else. And then you start factoring in that I was not an aspiring, but you know what I mean? I was interested in art at the time. I used to doodle and draw a lot. And then this album cover comes up, and it's spray painted, and it's urban, it's messy, yet somehow artistic and intricate. And all of their cover art, you pull the album cover apart, and it's all sorts of different designs and free-flowing patterns and spray painted graffiti and all sorts. And then you've got the music video. So you've got Points of Authority is just sort of live clips, but it's still spliced together in a really cool way. Crawling is this fucking masterpiece, if you ask me. You've got In the End. You've got One Step Closer, which is fucking insane, but it's still somehow artistic in its own way. And it's just great. Now, moving on from that, they inspired me at this point. I wanted to try and emulate Linkin Park in a ton of different ways. I started being very heavily influenced by their artistic style and my doodles and drawings. You try and copy their logo. You try and copy the Linkin Park soldier. You draw these cartoonistic style references of the band members. There's a really famous one that I remember where they all sort of have their eyes blued out, with the exception of Chester, who's got glasses on. And it's this sort of really cartoonistic, devilish style of them all that I really loved, and I copied that time and time and time again. I remember that very vividly. And at the time, I was really starting to get interested in music. I got my first guitar. I started learning how to play the drums, and I started to sing. A good friend of mine by the name of Thomas, me and him bonded over a shared love of Linkin Park and wanting to emulate their music. I played on drums. He was an infinitely more talented guitarist. And we would sit there trying to emulate and the first song I ever learned to play on the piano, for instance, was In the End. And I tried to learn the drum beat from In the End and the guitar riffs from In the End. And it was really that thing of I want to do what they do. God, I want to do what they do. I want to do what they do so bad. And Chester became a hero of mine. The way he sang, the visceral nature of how he used to deliver things like in Crawling, like in Points of Authority. And his style, man. To this day, if it wasn't for the fact that I'd feel like a prime dickhead, I ended up getting a tattoo, okay? But it wasn't my first choice. My first choice was to get the fucking blue flames from Chester Bennington. In fact, this is how fucking lame I was. I used to draw them on. I used to draw on the blue flames in pen, and it would drive people crazy because they're like, you fucking nerd, you fucking geek. But it was that thing of, yeah, but you don't understand. Chester Bennington's my fucking hero, man. He's so cool. Years later, I would dye my hair blonde. I'd bleach blonde it. I went to the prom with bleach blonde hair because of Chester, because I was just like, he's the fucking man. He's so fucking cool. I love this man. He is my fucking god incarnate. But the thing was with Linkin Park was that fandom developed over time. I was obsessed from the jump. And then it develops because then Yahoo started showcasing music on their website. Again, this is before YouTube. This is before MySpace and all the rest of this sort of stuff. I remember when Meteora was teased, specifically Somewhere I Belong was teased, and they had this sort of 30-second clip that they released that was sort of muffled at the beginning and then because it's a promo. It's like, coming soon, Linkin Park's new single. And then at the end, sort of something similar. So you really only got 15 seconds of a clip. And it would take forever to buffer, and there was no repeat. So you had to wait for it to buffer every single fucking time you played it. But I still listened to that 15-second segment with so much. I analysed it. I listened to it over and over to extrapolate absolutely everything I could about what the song was going to be like. And then Yahoo had a premiere for it, which was preceded by like this interview segment with Mike talking about how the band had blown up since Hybrid Theory and meeting Slick Rick and thinking that that was a really cool moment for him. And it's like, cool, really getting hyped for Somewhere I Belong. And then Somewhere I Belong drops. And it's everything you want it to be. It's creative, quirky, clever, sounds fucking badass, and somehow didn't replicate Hybrid Theory, but just sort of started to just take it to the next level. Just started to peak it a little bit, because like the idea being that they take a riff and they reverse it, but they played it in reverse and then played it normally, and then it becomes this thing where it's like, oh, okay, we flipped it and reversed it, and now it sounds right, to create this sort of weird reverb sound that's sort of surreal and dreamy. And that kind of carries through from the rest of the album in terms of they take all of their core concepts and just elevate them a little bit. They don't throw everything out with the bathwater. They don't copy everything they've done verbatim. They just sort of tweak it and elevate it. And in between these two periods, I seem to remember that they also released sort of what was something that they would come to be famous for, which is remix albums, Reanimation. I remember listening to that album almost on loop the entire vacation I took to Florida one year, because I was like, I mean, it's all the same songs, but yeah, there's a new... So much so that to this day, I sometimes get the lyrics mixed up between the original versions of the songs. Like, In the End, I'm a really bad version of this. In the End... and the Reanimation version of In the End, I get switched up all the time. I forget the main verse because the main verses are alternated in the End. One thing, I don't know how. Sorry. Because when I designed this rhyme, I was scared of it all. Scared to fall. I hadn't even tried to fall. And it just sort of peaks from there, which is not what everyone else remembers. Everyone remembers the original In the End, and that's it. And Reanimation was special to me too for another reason, which was that thing of... it's speaking to me personally, because what song is on Reanimation? My December. And I'm like, my birthday's in December. Holy shit. Chester Bennington singing My December. I didn't have Google at the time to Google to see if his birthday was in December, so I was like, oh my god, Chester Bennington's birthday is in December like me. Yeah, I didn't have that, but I made that conclusion. But it's that thing of, it just continued to solidify my relationship with the band and how they were influencing me, how they were guiding my sort of... my fashion preferences. Like I posted on Twitter earlier, I had a Linkin Park hoodie that basically became my uniform for 2 years, man. I very, very rarely didn't wear it. My mum got sick to fucking death of washing it because I want to wear it to school tomorrow. Can it be washed and dried for tomorrow? And she'd be like, Lorne, could you just wear something else? Not a chance. Buy me another hoodie if you have to, the exact same one, but I'm wearing. In fact, I still have it somewhere. It's vacuum sealed in one of these bags. I refuse to throw it out. Like, fuck, can I fit into it anymore? But like, fuck, am I throwing it out? Anyways, and then you go into Meteora, and Meteora is brilliant. Fucking love Meteora. It's probably not quite as high on my list as Hybrid Theory because you never forget your first, but it's a pretty fucking hard album to beat. And again, another album that I think just about every single song in it I absolutely adore. And that leads into a kind of a turning point for the band as well as fandom for Linkin Park. And again, people don't remember this. Again, people got ritually bullied for being Linkin Park fans back in the day. It was not cool to be a Linkin Park fan in England, at least. I can't speak for America, but in England, if you were considered to be a goth or a greeb or painting your nails and wearing black and being depressed overtly, you were picked on relentlessly for that shit until Jay-Z collaborated with Linkin Park. Collision Course changed the game as far as being a fan of Linkin Park, because suddenly the same people that were listening to Usher and Lil Jon and fucking all that shit were listening to Linkin Park too, because everyone thought, wow, Numb Encore's fucking badass. And the Collision Course album as a whole is again one of those albums that it's only got 8 tracks on it, I think, but you just sit there and you sort of absorb it all over the course of 30 or 40 minutes, and there's suddenly not a bad song on it, and you go like, I mean, Gigawatt I always thought was a bit of a, it's like a paranoia working over my back. It's always felt like a weird juxtaposition for me, but that's just me. I still listened to it, I still enjoyed it. And as I was saying, because of this sort of change in the social dynamics of being a fan of Linkin Park, not only were the people that I was bonding with over my fandom of Linkin Park now free to be a little bit more themselves and a bit more comfortable, now you had people who wouldn't have been friends with me because I was a Linkin Park fan suddenly bonding with me because they saw how much of a fucking hardcore, crazed, knew every detail, knew every band member and all the rest of it. You know, they were like, so tell me about Linkin Park. What are some of the songs that they released that you would recommend? Like some of the design, and they were noticing my drawings and artwork, and like, where does that come from? I'm like, dude, I just ripped this straight from Linkin Park, man. I just basically completely ripping it off of them. I'm sorry, but they were still intrigued, and it's this thing of now the worlds are colliding, a collision course, if you will, of worlds of people in their teenage years who are very ardent. Anyways, sorry, I can hear a bell in the background, and it's as if it's like the rod coming back from the curtain to pull me off, because I know I'm taking my time here, but I really want to lay the groundwork first, because I don't want this to be a negative video. I want it to be a celebration of sorts, but then I want it to be why I'm talking about it. So anyways, so yeah, it was one of those moments where it just changed the game, and then we go into, that's in middle school, then I go into high school, which then turned to secondary school, and then you start talking to, again, people who tell you things like, hey, there's an alternate version of that song. Hey, there's like there's a whole underground albums that they released that we just don't get over here in the UK. Now, this was like mind-blowing to me, and this is the part of the thing that I know fans of Linkin Park won't be happy with, and I'm sure Linkin Park themselves wouldn't be happy with, because this is the part where I admit to pirating a bunch of music. I forget what the name of the fucking the name of the fucking download was, but there was a thing that you used to do where you used to burn CDs, right? So this is before MP3 players were really around, or at least cheap enough. They were still on iPods. There you go. iPods were like 100, 200 quid, and I just didn't have that kind of money. So what we used to do is we used to buy rewritable CDs, which were like £5 for 10, and you just burn the music straight on that, and you just listen to it on your Walkman. And yeah, I then go on here, and you have to search for keywords, and people would rename songs, and that always frustrated the fuck out of me. But there they were. There's like alternate versions of In the End. There's demo versions of stuff. There's this weird Mike song. It's and my fear it grows, I run. And it's like, wait, Mike's singing? Chester's not in this one? How weird. And it's like, but it was cool. It's like, this is different. It felt like secrets. It felt like discovering something new about a band that thought I knew everything about. And then you've got the collaborations, and then occasionally someone would have remixed something. You put that in there, and again, you start to really feel like you're part of this sort of all-encompassing community, because suddenly everyone loves Linkin Park, right? And then you go into upper school, and that's when, if my notes are to be believed, that's when we first heard of QWERTY, and we go, that's a new song. And at the end of the song, and by the way, QWERTY fucking is still one of the best Linkin Park songs that never got a proper release. I'm going to stand on ceremony that QWERTY is fucking amazing. At the end, Mike says, we're working on some more for you. And me and my buddy Brenny at the time were both like, did he just say that they're working on a new album? Holy fuck. That means they must be touring. And we're proper teenagers at this point. We're 15, 16 years old. Holy shit, dude. We could actually get to go and see Linkin Park live. Dude, could we really do this? Holy shit. So anyways, Minutes to Midnight drops. And this is after Thought Minor. I listened to Thought Minor as well. I loved Mike's work on there because it was hip-hop express, but there were some really personal songs in there. It was nice to hear him, keep him busy. But I was dying for some Linkin Park, right? And then Minutes to Midnight drops. And here's where I have to be a little bit honest. This is where my fandom of Linkin Park starts to go a little bit, Me and my friend Brenny, we're in, this is first day of sixth form as well. So we're both in our stupid little suits, and because we're dressed up trying to make a good impression on the first day, and we happen to be on our phones, and we remember both turn to us, dude, Minutes to Midnight's up. Should we both just go and buy it? Let's just go buy it. So we both head to the local Tesco's, we buy the CD each, and we get to sixth form first because we know they've got a stereo, and we think, fuck, if we get there early enough, we can listen to the whole album before school starts. We get there, and we both put the album on, and we both absorb it. Now, here's the thing. This is where I have to be honest. When we first heard it, with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 songs, we weren't fans of that album. Like, we thought, ooh, some of these songs just aren't Linkin Park. But the reason why that's interesting in hindsight is because Minutes to Midnight I have grown to appreciate and like, because I also know and appreciate that as artists and as men, they were changing. They were wanting to explore their artistic visions more. They wanted to experiment and make something new. Their opinion was, well, we've done Meteor and Hybrid Theory and even Reanimation and a bunch of stuff on the underground albums. We want to do something different. At the time, though, my hipster ass fucking mind went, Linkin Park would trash the day that fucking Bleed It Out made its way onto a FIFA soundtrack. Because at the time, like, FIFA was like commercial of all commercials. Like, if you were on a FIFA soundtrack, it meant that, yes, you were popular, but it meant, though, that for the hardcores, the people that were really, like, snobbish about shit, nah, you had to go, man. And so it took me time to really come around to Minutes to Midnight, but nevertheless, you know, we came around to it eventually, to the point where, and I'll never forget this, a buddy of mine says, hey, man, Linkin Park are going to be in Nottingham. Oh, and by the way, Biffy Clyro are supporting them. Holy fuck. Okay, go on then. And me and my mates take a trip to Nottingham, and it's a fucking story in of itself. I'll tell it one day. It's amazing. Suffice to say, four idiot 16-year-olds making their way across the country, having never done it before, to go to a concert that none of them had been to before, is like... And it ended just as terribly as it began. But nevertheless, we get there. And I can't remember how many people it was. It was Nottingham Arena. So there was, I don't know, maybe 3,000, 4,000 people. I don't know. But it was certainly the biggest crowd that I'd ever been to by myself. Like, no parents, no, gardener or anything. And there they were. And I'll remember it well because we were all like, Biffy Clyro had finished and they were a good half an hour, 45 minutes, man. I remember us all sort of turning and thinking, are they fucking going to show up? And then, boom, lights go off and they tear the fucking roof. I remember because me and my friends, so there's me, there's Brenny, there's a guy called Jamie, there's a guy called Jordan. There's a picture of us all on MySpace. I really must go and get that picture. And after the first 3 songs, which I think I want to say were One Step Closer, Faint, and Given Up. In fact, some of the Given Up footage is from that performance in Nottingham. So I'd like to think I'm in a Linkin Park music video somewhere, even if it's just a blur for a second, okay? But nevertheless, we turn to each other and go, I think they're trying to kill us. I think they're trying to kill us. Fucking faint. One step closer and fucking given up. Back to back to back. I think they're trying to kill us. I think we might die at the end of this because it was just fucking... just balls to the walls from the jump. It was amazing. And the concert itself went off without a hitch. It was amazing to hear them sort of play a really good mix of all of their albums up until that point. And then they do Road to Revolution in Milton Keynes. And I'm definitely in that DVD somewhere. I just haven't been able to find myself yet. But that was one where... that's, again, another story of itself. But again, we could not miss that one. Linkin Park were there. Jay-Z was there. NERD was there. Pendulum was there. Enter Shikari were there. That was a fucking day. But it was crowned off by Linkin Park, who, again, gave an amazing set of performances. They gave one of those really slow, somber bits towards the middle of it. They lent a little bit more heavily into Minutes to Midnight that I would have liked, but of course they're there kind of promoting the album. And then everyone's leaving, and I turned to... there was a girl who I wasn't dating her, but she was there because she was with her boyfriend. They got split up, and I was like, right, you stick with me. And she's like 4 foot nothing, so she's on my back the whole concert so she can actually fucking see. And she said, well, why aren't we leaving too? And I go, they always do an encore, because I knew my shit. And part of me was like, and I bet Jay-Z's going to come out for one too. There's just, it can't. And Jay-Z had never done that before. He'd never done the Collision Course stuff on stage with Linkin Park, certainly not in the UK. So we managed to make our way to the front. And yeah, he came out, and fuck me, what a concert. It was fucking insane. Absolutely amazing. And on both times, I'll admit, okay, I'm just going to say this right now. I don't care how fucking lame it makes me. Both times, when I felt like there was a natural pause, I screamed at the top of my voice, I love you, Chester! Because it was going to be my one and only opportunity to profess my undying love for a man that had influenced me in both my fashion, my music choices, my style, my artistic liberties, everything, right? So anyways, that's kind of the high point of my fandom of Linkin Park. Then you get into my adult years, and then you've got things like Living Things and Burn It Down. Thousand Suns I was very disappointed with for a number of reasons, but I still listened to it. I still digested it. I still liked a lot of songs on it. Living Things and Burn It Down. I thought Burn It Down was kind of the tuned down version of the songs that would be on that album, and it wasn't. But again, I come to appreciate those albums. It's the same with The Hunting Party. There's a few songs on there I don't like, but you know, these aren't the masterpieces that I would equate to being Meteor and Hybrid Theory from before. But still, there's still songs on there that you go back to and you really enjoy for different reasons. And then One More Light. And One More Light is an album I really didn't come around to for a while, because it felt at the time that Linkin Park were becoming more and more like a Coldplay type of band. They seemed very self-aggrandizing. Their music had seemed to lost a lot of its emotion, its veracity, and it seemed to be more melodical. It was only in hindsight, obviously, with the single of One More Light and Heavy, that you go, wow, there was a lot of emotion in these songs. So, you feel bad. But the point is, during my adult years, it seemed like every time I was struggling in life, and again, it's one of those weird coincidences. I'm sure, fate and all the rest of it would have meant that I would have always equated it to this anyway. But it always seemed like Linkin Park would come out with an album. They just seemed to be a constant presence in my life, that whenever I was down and needed some outlet, there'd be a Linkin Park album right there. And yeah, maybe I didn't like all of it, but there were songs that were like, God damn, that's a really good one. And then Chester passed. Now, I remember hearing the news about that and just straight up not believing it. Being like, fuck you. Don't joke about that shit. It's not funny. And then, yeah, they said he'd committed suicide. And that was like, that was hard, man. Like, again, I've never met him. This is the thing. Someone made this point, like, none of you ever met Chester. None of you knew what he was like, what he liked, what he thought, what he would feel now. And it's fair. It's fair. I can only speak to what my relationship was with what he put out about himself. And I just remember thinking, like, things will never be the same ever again. I've lost the person that I in so many ways influenced me, and in so many ways I look to for just like, he was just the coolest, man. He was the greatest. He was, you know, so fucking talented, so fucking good at what he did. He connected with everybody. He would just seem like a... Again, you never know the person, granted, and in this day and age, every time you fucking learn about someone that's famous for long enough, you learn they're a piece of shit, granted, because we all kind of are. But, like, I'll never forget, like, just how gut-wrenching it was hearing that he died and hearing that he'd committed suicide. So it wasn't even a tragedy. It was something that he'd done because he couldn't go on. And considering how much he gave me as a person, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I felt like I'd let him down in some way. Like, we'd all let him down in some way. Like, I don't know how to articulate it, but it felt like we'd done something wrong, that someone who had expressed himself and bared his soul and fucking screamed his lungs out for us, for our entertainment, to make us feel like one big community, like we all shared something special, and that we were all made to feel special, and we had our feelings validated and how we looked at things validated by him and by the band. When I heard that he was gone, it was like, what do you do now? And I never, again, like I said, I didn't want to talk about it at the time because it felt like everyone was then lining up to say I was the biggest fan. No, I was the biggest fan, and his passing hurts me the most. And it's like, it's not fucking competition, guys. And then also what happened was a lot of people started equating his death to suicide awareness, and it was like Chester Bennington represents suicide. And I was like, no, Chester Bennington was a musician. He was an artist. He was a vibrant personality who was also deeply troubled, and in hindsight was trying to just share enough about himself that maybe people felt less alone, like when he felt. I know that's why I do a lot of these live again, even to this day he's still influencing me in a way, because I feel like my live streams are in some way inspired by Chester Bennington, in trying to share with you shit that normally I would internalize because I worry about how it makes me look. But at the same time, I think, but if other people feel it too, and they see me saying what they feel, and it makes them feel less alone, and less likely then to beat up on themselves, or to give themselves a hard time for no reason, it's worth it. I'll take that. I'll take the looking like a twat. I don't care. So in a way, he's still influencing me. And like, it was something I never really reconciled with. And then Lost, they announced that they're going to be releasing some of the songs that they recorded but never mastered. And Lost was going to be the first one. And you hear that fucking chorus, and it's like, Mike Shinoda did articulate this perfectly. He said it's like finding an old photograph you forgot you had, but that you remembered how much it meant to you when you first took it. And seeing it, like, it was emotional, man. Like, yeah, I listened to that again. Linkin Park released like a 20-second, 30-second clip of it, and I listened to that fucking shit on repeat for about a week before the full version. And I remember getting up early so that I was awake for it to drop live. And I remember watching it live and thinking, this is exactly what it needs to be. This is the goodbye I needed. This is the closure I needed. Because as a fan of Linkin Park, it just felt like they were always going to be there. That Chester was always going to be there. And then when he was gone, and it was under such weird circumstances in terms of the timing, and obviously Chris Cornell's passing the year before, and it just was such a moment for fans to have, again, another uniting moment that we're all just... This is now the celebration it should have been. I understand that, the Chester Bennington concert was like... That was a moment for a lot of people. I couldn't watch that concert, really. I tried watching it. It was hard work for a variety of reasons. Especially considering the fact that it was Linkin Park performing without Chester. And... yeah, I couldn't really process that, man. So... them releasing songs like Lost, like More the Victim, like Fighting Myself, which were, again, harkening back to the days of Meteora and Hybrid Theory, with a little bit of Minutes to Midnight in there as well. Like, it was the perfect way to say goodbye. And now we arrive here. And yeah, they do the tease where it's... And look, even though I knew what it was going to be, because everyone had correctly predicted that the reason they're doing this is because they're trying to subvert expectation a little bit. I was there when the timer went down to 0 and then started ticking up. And I was there with everybody else going, what the fuck? And everyone's like, shit, what the fuck is this? And someone said, it's 9:05, so that's when they'll do the announcement, which is the 5th of September. And you go, okay. But prior to that, when the rumors were swelling, I already made my feelings clear that I just think it's not right to do. And now we're at the crux of the issue. I've spent 37 minutes detailing my fandom of Linkin Park, and this is why I wanted to do that, because 37 minutes is an abbreviated version. I could talk about Linkin Park for hours. I haven't even mentioned the fact that I was such a fan of Linkin Park at one point that at sixth form, we used to get paralytically drunk almost every weekend, or at least once a month, okay, around each other's houses or at the local bars, right? And one night, I'll never forget, I'm absolutely off my face, it turns out, and a buddy of mine starts to record me in the fucking bathtub because I've gone there for seclusion. Like, I'm so paralytically drunk, I'm upstairs, I've yacked my guts out, but I'm still awake somehow. And there's like 6 people, and he's recorded this, there's like 6 people around me sitting in various parts of the bathroom because I'm not screaming, but I'm singing full-throated Linkin Park songs. And I'm singing it word for word, beat for beat, and people are singing along. Do you know what? That was a good memory for what I remember. I remember looking up and like, yeah, just being like, but he showed me the video and I was like, wow, I really don't remember doing that. And they were like, dude, we were all just so impressed you knew all the Linkin Park words so well that you could recall them even when you were drunk, even when you couldn't remember you were doing it. Anyway, and yeah, so we arrive at here where a couple of days ago they do this concert where they have fans turn up, they bust them to a secret thing, and they announce that they're reforming with not only a new singer, this is something people seem to be omitting as well, but with a new drummer as well. Rob Borden is not returning to the band lineup now, and they've announced a new album from Zero, and they're announcing that they're going to be touring throughout 2025. Okay, now, one thing I want to get off my chest first of all is I wish people would stop saying they're not replacing Chester. I really need you to stop saying that. Because you are. If you want to frame it as the sentiment is, oh, Chester will never be replaced, and she isn't trying to replace Chester. Again, I'm not here to criticize her, because if I was offered the opportunity to be the lead singer of Linkin Park, I'd have to seriously consider it, despite the fact that I don't have any musical experience, I can't sing, and I can't write lyrics to songs, so therefore I'd be a rubbish musician. But I'd still be like, dude, I could be the lead singer of Linkin Park. But then it's an opportunity any self-respecting musician probably wouldn't turn down unless they weren't confident in their ability to fulfill musically. So I don't begrudge the choice of person. It could have been anyone that they chose at this point, and I'd still arrive at the same conclusion, which is I don't think you should do it, and here's why. Linkin Park, for me, and for a lot of people that have been following them for 24 years, it turns out, have supported the band to make them what they are today, and their community is what it is today because of the original incarnation of the band. And that's Chester Bennington. Chester Bennington's voice, his mannerisms, his charisma, his writing influences, combined with Mike Shinoda, made Linkin Park what it is. Yes, the other guys contributed musically in terms of their own styles, in terms of their own ideas, but Mike Shinoda has always been the creative force behind Linkin Park. But Chester was always the soul. Chester was always that grounding force that made their songs human. I think that's typified in Mike Shinoda's work in that it always sounds fine. It always sounds good and catchy and musically quite competent, but it, for me, it always lacked that sense of passion, that heart, that sort of grounding force. And that's no better typified than in the fact that he wrote In the End, right? And it was a song he wasn't convinced was going to do all that well. And Chester wasn't all that sold on because it wasn't that sort of really gritty, visceral, rock-oriented. It was more melodic and a bit soulful. But between them, they made it work. Because that combination of the balance of the two is what makes Linkin Park sound the way they do, feel the way they do, and evokes the emotions that they do. And if you want to say they're not replacing Chester, okay, by definition, that's what they have done. They have not changed the composition of the band in terms of it being a 6-person arrangement. They have not changed the composition in terms of the fact that now Mike is the lead singer and the only vocal contributor with maybe one of the other band members. They've got an express, I don't know what you want to call that style of singing, but like, she is there to take the place of Chester Bennington. You're replacing him. And it also doesn't help, and again, I'm not slandering her, but someone that screams and has blonde hair, who does that remind you of? And the fact that she's a woman is immaterial to me, by the way, because it's the profile. It's the fact that she can do the things, or at least emulate the things that Chester used to do, albeit she sounds a little different. That's replacing Chester Bennington. And given how we all reacted to Chester's passing, which was his passing meant the end of Linkin Park as we knew it. And we were all sad to see the fact that it was never gonna be the same. To see him replaced and told, to see, this is hard for me because this is why I wanted to say it speaks to a lot of things at the moment. Chester Bennington's gone. And it fucking sucks so bad that he's gone and that he did what he did because he felt how he felt. We'll never know why, but the fact is that I still feel partly responsible in a stupid ass way about it because somehow the fandom and what was contributing in his life wasn't enough to keep him from going to a place that we all felt like going to. I don't think anyone in their adult lives doesn't confront their mortality in some small way. And certainly as a man in 2024, I've contemplated on a number of occasions feeling like, am I an imposition on everyone's lives? Would it just be better if I wasn't around? And the fact that Chester's music always sort of rescued me from that, and then he was gone, was like a life support. It's like your ripcord being pulled and realizing you've now not got a parachute, man. It was a gut. And so I appreciate where fans come from when they think they need that to continue. I really do get it. I'm not saying when fans say they're glad Linkin Park are back and that, you know, that they like the fact that the band members can sort of use this as a catharsis or whatever. I get it. I really do. If someone could say to you tomorrow that someone you love or something you love can be brought back, who among us wouldn't at least consider it? Because you think that you're getting back what you've lost, but you don't. It was a part of our lives, and it's something we all have to come to terms with. And replacing him feels wrong, because by doing that, you're undermining what he represents to that band and to the fandom that built it. And it's the same with Rob. The fact that he's not back and they went ahead anyway, I get that he was never front and center, but he was still, I remember him doing a solo in Milton Keynes and feeling like that was sick. I'm glad he's in the band. Replaceable though. Just get someone else. I hate that. And you can interchange the word to make you feel semantically better about it as much as you like, but the fact is they replaced Chester Bennington. The one person who we all rallied around because of Linkin Park. We're all being honest. Again, Mike Shinoda's a very talented individual. He's clearly the creative force, the driving force behind the band. And he's largely responsible for its success, and he's not heralded enough for it. But if we're all really fucking honest with ourselves, our favourite member was Chester fucking Bennington. He was the icon that made Linkin Park. and to replace him with someone else, anyone else. I don't care about her as the choice. Again, I must reiterate, this isn't a slander on her as a choice. It undermines our relationship with the band up until this point. It undermines Chester's role in the band. And it speaks to this idea that it doesn't matter who or what you are or what you've done, you can be replaced. We'll just carry on regardless. And for the person that influenced me more than almost anybody else in my life, that's not fucking good enough. And so there's a comment here. So we're getting to Charlie's point now. To Charlie's point, which is, why does it bother you? And again, it's because, again, when Chester died, that was hard enough, okay? And when Lost was released, and you got just, again, like flicking through a photo album after someone's passed, and seeing memories of happier times that are gone because they can't be replicated, but you're still glad you had them, and you wouldn't trade that experience for anything, was the moment I feel like we all needed as fans. And it was one of those moments where you just feel like, no, I'm glad they did this. Some people might not be happy they did this. I for one was fucking just so happy when you hear Lost for the first time and you see the art style, and you know, it was a great goodbye. And now they're just gonna go on without him. They're just gonna go on without him. And yes, they'll say that no one can replace Chester. Well, you did. You just got someone else who will fill the role. Chester Bennington, of all people. And again, it's an emotional response to something. It's a band I've never met who make music, right? Why get so emotionally invested? It's because of the influence and the impact they've had on me as a person, on how I look at the world, how I look at myself, how they inspired me to try things. They inspired me to be me. You know? I wasn't the straight-laced geek. I wasn't the jock. I wasn't the fucking sporty guy. I was the fucking depressive little fucking dark-haired, black-wearing goth in the corner. Like, I didn't care because I had Linkin Park, and their music really helped reinforce that it was okay to be that way. And so let's and by the way, Nixon Music has put those comments again. I want to be clear, her as a choice is immaterial. Could have been anybody. I don't know enough about her to hate her or like her. She's literally come on stage and sung a few songs. That's the extent of my knowledge. What was it? Emptiness Machine, which is the single that they released as a sort of parallel to the announcement. I didn't hate it. I was just like, meh. It's okay. But that kind of leads into Mike T's question. Michael T, sorry. Oh, wow. Brad is only a live... Oh, wow, okay. We'll leave that to one side as well. Fucking hell. The lead guitarist isn't coming with them either. Anyways, the question, what do you think about if they would have come back under a different name instead of Linkin Park? Right, so this is why I wanted to talk about this, because I want everyone to be honest about this, because this is hard, but it has to be broached. Why do you think they're coming back as Linkin Park and simply not forming another band, a la Audioslave, Velvet Revolver? Two bands that are basically the original bands, albeit with a new lead singer. What do you think? It's because fans are fickle. Now, I really adore Chester Bennington's other work. I really adore Mike's other work. Mike's album, actually, after Chester Bennington passed, was not something that I gravitated towards initially, but it's one that I've grown to appreciate with time. But the fact is that if Linkin Park, the members, had reformed under another name, I think they get 10%, 20%, 30%, however much, you certainly get a diminished level of interest because fans are fickle. If it isn't Linkin Park, how many people are actually interested in Mike Shinoda making a return with a new singer and maybe a couple of new band members, exploring similar themes, albeit under a different guise? I put this decision ultimately down to the fans, because fans are fucking fickle, man. Fans buy into brand loyalty and brand... they idealize brands more than they do artistic license and integrity at this point. And so, in my view, the reason they didn't reform, because it's what I suggested, and it's something that I would be 100% comfortable with, because to their point, Mike Shinoda and the guys who are returning fully deserve to continue to be musicians. They fully deserve to reap the benefits of fuck me, 30 years, 35 years of work at this point. And if they want to tour and they still have artistic points to make, they still have points of view that they want to express through music, who the fuck's to say they can't do that? Absolutely. And if they want to take a lot of what they built from Linkin Park and channel that into a new band that gives them the license to do that, who the fuck's to say no? But in the same way that I would resent, and do resent, people who are synonymous or iconic for things being replaced, because fuck them, we can replace you. We can replace anybody at this point. Even if you're dead, we can just AI you into shit. And we're now just all comfortable with that. And I'm not. I feel like if the fandom was more open to the idea that a brand doesn't denote quality and that the people are what make quality, then Mike Shinoda would have had no problems in forming a new band and creating something entirely new, which, given the fact that he's evolved as a creator, as a man, as an artist, and now he has full license to curate more rock-oriented elements into his music, as opposed to focusing solely on hip-hop and sort of alternative styles, which is what he did from his other albums, I'd be super interested in that. Because again, if we're all honest, Mike was the one who was writing a lot of the more classic songs. He was the one that was producing the music at a fervent rate. He was the one that was kind of the creative channel, the conduit for things. Mike is the one you would need at the helm. I'd have no problems with that. And again, if you want to hate on her as a lead singer now, because I've seen the talk, right? What religion she is and what she may or may not have done, supported, said in the past is fucking immaterial. I don't care. Everyone's said and done things that they fucking regret. Everyone says and does things that not everyone believes in. Frankly, the only thing that should be quantitative in her as an artist is how good she is as a singer. And I thought she was fine. Obviously, my opinion is tempered a little bit by the subject matter here, but as far as the quality of her singing, I can't sing as well as her. She's got she's got a grit to her voice, but it carries a bit like Chester, and there's a melodical similarity between the two that I can't divorce from my mind. But again, that's not really relevant because it's the choice itself. There's a few more comments, and I want to get to those. So, Honey Barra Patre, lol, some more hate. If you want to call it that, that's fine. I think you've skipped the first 35 minutes where I detailed my fandom of Linkin Park and the reason I've made the decision, but that's fine. Barrett Singh says, more Linkin Park is always better. Again, I fundamentally disagree with that statement because I believe that not everything's supposed to last forever, man. And so Lil Nick has also put something similar, which is they have every right to ever hear of a band called Van Halen. Again, man, I'm not here to, because the thing with other bands, so I wasn't a Rage Against the Machine fan. Not really. I liked a couple of their songs. I wasn't a massive Guns N' Roses fan. I heard a couple of the songs, that, all right. There's going to be other examples. Van Halen, I wasn't a massive Van Halen. Again, dude, I can only speak to this particular instance because, again, from 10 years old, for more than 2/3 of my life, Linkin Park have been a driving force in not only my musical tastes, but my inspirations. And therefore, I feel like that qualifies me as a fucking fan to have an opinion about whether or not this is a good or a bad choice. And what impact it has on me. Because I feel like it entitles me to that opinion. It doesn't. Not every decision has to have unilateral support, even if you can make the case for it. And again, I do understand where people are coming from who are really happy about this. And to them, and okay, so let me make sure this is out there as well, because I don't want it to be not said, because I don't want people to think I don't believe this, which is to every single fan, especially in the new ones, who now get an opportunity to experience what a Linkin Park tour is like I got to when I was 16, and to every older fan that feels like this is an extension of their fandom, more power to them, man. More power to them. It's not for me to govern fandom. To the band members themselves, excluding, it turns out, Brad as well. I didn't know that, but Rob, if they feel like they don't want to go along for it, fine. That's, again, their choice to make. I'm not here to say that's a good... I'm not here to say, oh, they did the right thing or they didn't do the right thing. Again, that's their choice. And again, they knew the situation. They're behind the scenes. They were there from the jump. They get to make their decisions based on it. I'm only talking about my relationship with Linkin Park and why I think this is endemic of a cultural attitude we have towards the things we hold dear that I find very troubling. I don't think it's okay to just go ahead replacing things. I think that in Linkin Park's case, with Chester Bennington specifically, given how fucking badly it affected all of us who call ourselves Linkin Park fans and were fans of Chester, and again, I will have no compunction of telling you, Chester Bennington was my fucking idol, man. My fucking idol. It doesn't feel right. It feels like saying... I get it when Mike says... I think he's being very tactful with it, saying playing the role of Chester Bennington is all of you. I gotta be honest with you, I saw that as emotional pandering. I didn't see that as a nice touch. I saw that as a necessary statement to make sure that people had it in their arsenal to say. Again, and it's being repeated, they're not replacing Chester. They are. They went ahead and replaced Chester Bennington. And that makes me incredibly sad because of what Chester Bennington meant to me. And the band Linkin Park, including Chester Bennington, meant to me. And now it's gone. And in its place is something else because... forming a new band wouldn't be as lucrative. It wouldn't get the traction. It wouldn't get the attention. And I don't think that's a good enough reason. And that's as much for fans, us, to blame as them. Because I understand the decision. If you have the choice to make twice the money, but all you got to do is this, what do you do in your professional career? You take the more lucrative option. I get it. I really do. There's a couple of other comments. How about AC/DC? Yep, again, that's another band I'm not a massive fan of. And you have to ask the fans of those bands if they feel like if the passing of their lead singer makes the difference to the identity of the band that Chester's. It's the same reason, by the way, the only other example I can think of is Queen. And again, I still think that's weird, because who doesn't think of Freddie Mercury when you think of Queen? In the same way that when you think of Linkin Park, you immediately picture it's something like Chester grabbing a microphone and screaming his fucking lungs out with either a shaved head or bright blonde hair with those tattoos, sweat dripping down, just pain and anguish and fucking visceral, just etched onto every feature of his face. That's what I think of when I think of Linkin Park. It's the visual thing. It comes to my mind. I don't know if the same is true with if Van Halen, if the thing you think of is the lead singer or one of the guitarists. I don't know. You would have to tell me. ardent fans of those bands who have been shaped, formed, and influenced by them would have to speak to me about that. Because I don't know. I can only tell you, and again, the other reason is I don't follow other bands like I follow Linkin Park. Weezer is probably the only other band, or Blink-182 is the only other band that I would say, like, I have a reasonable knowledge of. Like, I can sing along to their back catalogs and their albums pretty well. Not in terms of well, but like I remember a lot of their lyrics. But not like Linkin Park, man. Not like Linkin Park. And so, like, I get it. I really do. Fans at the moment are in a spot where they feel like they get more of something, and that's fine. But I just feel like it's ultimately motivated by money, because they know Linkin Park's brand and the inbuilt audience that it commands is more lucrative than forming a new band. And you even saw Mike himself. He gave an interview where he said, hey, give us a chance. He's speaking to people like me, I guess. I don't know. But I'd much rather him make that statement having formed a new band, because then he'd be standing behind the integrity of his music making the impact, not the name and the connotation that it draws with a fandom that for a band that doesn't exist anymore. Without Chester Bennington, Linkin Park isn't Linkin Park. And it won't ever be. Not really. He brought such an identity to that band. And yeah. And like I said, I could go on forever about stories and anecdotes and moments that meant a lot to me about the band. And it wouldn't just be Chester oriented. I promise you, there's some things where I thought more like Mike. There's moments where I was trying to emulate the riffs from Brad Danielson. When I was learning to play the drums and trying to be like Rob Borden. Phoenix I never emulated. I'm sorry. I never wanted to be a bass player, albeit he was so funny to watch in clips growing up. Like, he was clearly the one with the best sense of humor in the band. And of course, you've got Joe Hahn, who I'm one of the few probably that really liked Session and liked Cure for the Itch and the remix for Cure for the Itch. I really enjoy. In fact, I think the Premier League used Session at one point for their intro to the Premier League, and I remember being like, fuck, this is cool. And I think I've covered this. So Jelena said the same way to Alan. And look, again, guys, I appreciate, by the way, there's a lot of new people in my chats. These are probably people that have never seen me before. So sorry, this is your introduction to me. I promise I'm way more boring than this usually. Again, I get that there are examples of other bands that have replaced their leads. Tell me, though, another band whose lead singer passed under the circumstances they did that had the fucking impact on its fan base and indeed the world. Like, there wasn't a person when Chester passed that didn't corner me because they knew I was a Linkin Park fan to tell me that it affected them. Like, it was a moment in time. Like, I don't really remember another time where the passing of one person had the impact it did on people it shouldn't really have, but did, because even they had been touched by Linkin Park's music at some point in their lives to some degree. And so, like, I get that there's a laundry list of other bands that have gone through something similar. I understand that. I'm not a fan of them, though, in the same way I'm a fan of Linkin Park. So I can't speak to, as a fan, what it feels like to see the band continue in lieu of someone who should mean more than that. I feel like when Linkin Park released, like I say, that Lost sequence, that was their way of saying goodbye by letting you just have one last taste of what there used to be. And it didn't feel cheap. It didn't feel like they were milking it for any particular reason. That felt like a genuine attempt to connect with their fans again in a way by saying, like, look, let's just share this moment again. This doesn't feel that way. This feels like we're going to do something different, but we're going to pretend it's more of the same. So come along with us. And again, I'm not saying you shouldn't. Again, so I think the comments that would apply to that are like Honey and Barat, maybe Lil Nick, maybe Jalento, I don't know. If you want to, like I'm the fucking arbiter, like I'm the one that's going to say, no, it's my decision, no. Fucking support them. I wish them nothing but success, by the way. If Mike, if they sell out all their tours and they hit record sales with their new album, that's great. Why wouldn't you want... Again, I don't wish ill on them. I don't think this was a decision that makes me think of Mike as a villain. Again, we all have to appreciate that they lived through that, knowing Chester. So as much as it had an impact on me and you, holy fucking shit. How hard must it have been to see one of your friends, collaborators, and someone you probably spent more of your adult life with than other people, including your family, pass away? Under the circumstances and not really understanding why, and then having to deal with that. I can't imagine how that must feel. Like, everywhere you go, they ask about it. Imagine having to go through that. So why would I want to wish them ill now? No, I wish Mike all the success in the world. I wish Brad, Phoenix, Joe, Rob. What is her name? I'm really sorry. I've got to stop being such a dickhead, and I've got to remember her name. Someone in the comments, pop it in there in case I miss it. Please. Because again, it really is immaterial to me who they chose. When they were talking about... The rumor was that the lead singer of Sum 41 was going to be the guy. I didn't think that was great either. And I'm a massive Sum 41 fan too. I love Sum 41. In Pieces is one of my favorite emo songs of all time. Forget all of the sort of the poppy... like that upbeat shit. Like, In Pieces was a fucking banger back in the day. I loved that shit. Let's go. Linkin Park. Emily Armstrong. There it is. Okay. So, yeah, Emily Armstrong. And again, I don't know who the new drummer is either. I haven't caught that name. And I don't know who their live lead guitarist is going to be. Who knows? Got no ill will. None. Because again, I understand that any self-respecting musician would probably take their hand off if they were offered the opportunity to front Linkin Park. I get it. I just think, though, that in the same way that when they start AIing people into movies that have passed, and when they start, you know, AI generating... Like, I'll throw myself in this, right? I don't like the AI-generated versions of Chester songs. I hate that shit. I really do. Cheers. It got me in the end. Emily Armstrong, yeah. I hate all that shit, too. I really hate how people can just take Chester's voice and superimpose it like it's a fucking toy. I love Chester Bennington because of his abilities as a performer and how he sounded and what he did with that, how he used it, how he articulated the essence of what being an artist is. I don't think it's fine to commodify that and swap it out like it's a fucking player in FIFA. And again, I think it speaks to this attitude we have now that so long as we get to pretend something, we're happy to pretend it instead of dealing with the reality, which is people who want to say that they haven't replaced Chester, they replaced Chester. I get you don't like thinking about it that way, but they did. The guy who we all fucking died a little bit when he died was replaced because they want to persevere with the brand name that, again, fickle that we are, we're more interested in than the actual people that comprise the band. And that speaks to something really dark about us, man, because... And this is a far more existential thing than just a Linkin Park thing, I grant you. So we'll end on something a little bit different, but just humor me for a second. All we really have in this life is our legacy and the memory we leave people. If you want to believe in religion and an afterlife and all the rest of that sort of stuff, and that when we pass, you go somewhere better or somewhere different, or you come back, you reincarnate, or whatever it is. In you know, Scientology's case, I don't know. I think it's just soul that rehabits something else. I don't know. But the point is that if you believe that there's stuff after this, fine. I don't. Death terrifies me. I'll share with you at the moment, I'm in a phase of life right now where I'll wake up in the middle of the night inhaling because I'm wondering if I've died. I'm like, and suddenly I'll be reminded that, oh shit, I'm going to die one day. And when I do, I'm going to close my eyes for the last time and it's nothing. And that thought terrifies me. But what it also does is it reminds me of what we do now is all that matters, because it's all that will be left of us in years to come. One day, your name will be uttered or thought of for the very last time, and then you will cease to exist. And that's a terrifying thought. But with that in mind, the legacy of a person and the memory of the person is worth preserving for what it is. And if Chester meant what he meant to me, to you, a few more albums and a few more tour dates under a band name he helped make, I don't know if that's worth it. It definitely isn't worth it to me. I don't know if it should be worth it to you, but if it is, again, I understand. I wish you cared more about the legacy of the man and how just deciding that you can carry on without him, with someone doing what he did somehow when he's irreplaceable, is okay. Because I wouldn't want that for me in my life. I wouldn't want it for any of you watching this. I would hope that there's something about you that is uniquely you, that when it's gone, it can't be replaced, and that leaves an impact on people. That they miss you. That they don't try to replace you because that would dishonor you. Because then that's a legacy. That's a memory that gets carried on. And that's when you tell stories about when you met someone and they're not anymore. And that's important. It's way more important than selling a couple of fucking albums and a few fucking tour tickets. At least in my mind it is. And Chester Bennington's memory deserves better than that. And so to answer the question from Michael T. earlier, if they'd have come back under a different band name, again, I reiterate, nothing but support. I'd be on board for that shit. I'd probably be the first in line to buy the album and buy tickets to it. In the same way I supported Mike and Chester's individual endeavors after they started doing their own things for a bit. Even when actually a lot of other people were hating on it. I remember people getting really trashy about Fort Minor, who were Linkin Park fans, ironically enough, because it's just hip-hop. And then people trashing, I think it's Dead by Sunrise, Chester Bennington's band. This is just emo-ish or too heavy. And it's like, I love both of them. I think they're cool. In fact, From Zero is an interesting choice because I remember the first time I read what one of their names for Hybrid Theory was going to be originally, or the band name originally, which was XERO. And I think they left a little something on the table from that, because if they'd have played with that a little bit and used, I don't mind them using the links of Linkin Park. Again, the idea that, hey, listen, man, we're clearly building from the foundations that Linkin Park started with. That would be different. But again, ultimately, though, I don't want this to come across as like a gatekeeping thing where I'm saying, if you like Linkin Park, you're trash, man. Or if you like her, then, fuck her, and she's this, that, the other. Dude, I don't really feel like engaging in that conversation at all. Like her because she's a good musician, dislike her if she's a bad one, if you must. I don't have an opinion on her one way or the other. I'm just talking about the fact that someone that's had an indelible impact on my life is being replaced, and that makes me really fucking sad. Because I think his memory deserved better than that. And as a fan, knowing that they're going to continue on, and that fans like me who feel this way are going to be like this, where it's like, oh, you're just a hater. Bitch, I've probably been following Linkin Park since before you were fucking born. I get an opinion on this. And if you disagree with my ability to have an opinion on this, fuck. When sooner or later something like this happens and you feel aggrieved, I want you to remember that moment. Because it's dehumanizing, to say the least. Because ultimately, the reason I love Linkin Park has got nothing to do with how popular they were. It's about how they made me feel. That's it. And this is why I'm also talking about it now, because this makes me feel a certain way. And like I said, for fans who now get to see Linkin Park tour live and get to buy a new album and get to be a part of that new experience, I don't begrudge them that, because I wouldn't have begrudged it to me when I found them when I was 10 years old. And as far as the band themselves, fuck, of course, I hope they sell out every arena. I hope their album gets quadruple platinum. I just wish it had been different. And I wish that fans would stop using the rhetoric of they're not replacing him to make themselves feel better about something they should be uncomfortable about at least a little bit. Because in my mind, it's no different than AI training someone to sing like Chester, singing, and then just AI dubbing over with Chester's voice. It's the same thing. It's, we'll carry on without you. And that's fucked up, man. It's fucked up. Anyways. Yeah, it did get emotional there in a minute. Oh, fucking hell. Yeah. Linkin Park meant a big deal to me, man. They're my favourite band, bar none. And Chester Bennington still and always will be my fucking idol, my hero. And, yeah. At the very, if they want to do me, if they want to prove me wrong, and she now goes on to become a hero and that jumping off point for a new legion of fans, again, more power to them. I wouldn't want to take away that experience from a single human being. It's one of the most profoundly pleasant things that I've ever experienced, and the thing that I'm probably most grateful for in terms of my development as a fan. So, with that, I don't see any, there's not really any more questions, and a lot of the comments are starting to circle around the same way. So listen, I appreciate you going on this journey with me for the last hour and a bit. Like who you like and like what you like, I suppose. Just don't be a dick to people that do or don't. I think I've put forward my case as amicably as I possibly can. At no point have you heard me say F any of them for any of these decisions, or F her, or F Mike, or any of that sort of stuff, or that you're a stupid... I've not condemned anyone for doing what they're doing beyond the fact that I feel like they should feel differently about not just this, but other things that I see that represent something that deeply troubles me. And that's that you shouldn't be replaceable. No one should be. No human being should ever feel like when they stop being able to do the thing that people want them to do or love them for, that someone else will just get plugged into that space. In fact, I'll leave you with one example of why I feel like it's not only fair to make that, but it's plausible to do it. So, I never met my grandfather, who I'm named after. My name is Lorne Derrick. Derek Risley is my grandfather's side on the father's side of my family. He died when my dad would have been 7, 8, 9, I forget exactly. But my dad was a very, very young boy when my granddad passed. So I never got to meet the man, and I've only ever heard about him in very, very fleeting terms. I don't have a really good sense of the man, except from one person, my grandma. She's been widowed for 45 years. I think. Something like that. Going on 50 years. And like most people of my age, you know, you get into relationships and they end quite frequently. And then a new one starts. And it feels like it's just another stepping stone on the walk of life. But to her, she was married to her childhood sweetheart. And I asked her once, were you never tempted? Did you never look into remarrying? And she always looked at it like, he's irreplaceable. He's the man I loved. No one would ever step into his shoes and replace what he represented and what he did for me. 45 years to go, and she still had kids to raise, man, and a fucking earning to make. But considering this is before benefits and welfare, any of that shit. 45 years. And to this day, she still holds on to his memory and tells me stories whenever I ask to preserve his memory and give me a glimpse into the man that he was. And he must have been some guy for her to hold on to that over replacing him with something else and convincing herself it's what he would have wanted. Because that's the other thing that pisses me off. It's what Chester would have wanted. You don't know. But I'm pretty sure most people don't want to look at their lives and see that everyone just kind of carried on. And I just feel like I'd rather be more like my grandma and deal with the pain of loss, because it's a way of honoring and retaining the memory of that person than minimize the person that meant so much to me by attempting to replicate and replace that feeling in person. Because like, fuck would I want it done to me? And that means something to me, man. And I'd like to think it means more to just other people than myself as well. So yeah. Anyways, like I said, I appreciate those of you who have gone on this last hour and a half with me. I appreciate all of the new people that have stopped by. I don't imagine I'll see you again, because I imagine it's the title of this video that's brought you here, not my content. I can only apologize if anything I've said has seemed gatekeeperish or anything like that. It's nothing to do with wanting to deny anybody anything necessarily, but it is more about this idea that a memory should be worth more than a feeling that fleets. Or so, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but again, you get the gist of it by now. So let's wrap it there. Michael T's had another nice little analysis of there. And look, and again, fans of the band from here on in will get used to it. It'll pass with time. I get it. So to fans of the new Linkin Park, hey, honestly, congratulations on having now the chance to experience them live and a new album experience. Okay? And enjoy it. Really do. Don't let people be negative about the thing that you love. Okay? Necessarily. Okay? If people want to hate on her at this point for the variety of reasons that I've seen her be attacked for, tell them to fuck off and just let you enjoy their music. Okay? Enjoy the experience of being a Linkin Park fan now that you've got the opportunity to do so. But just know that I feel like ultimately it's something I feel is wrong. So, and it makes me sad. And for what it's worth, I'm glad I have that sadness to a certain degree, because it means that it meant something to me. So, it's been a journey. Thank you very much for watching. My name's been Lorne Risley, host of the Halcyon Show. If you're new here, I do live streams on a fairly regular basis. I normally just do interviews with people. And believe it or not, to tie this all in, I did look into trying to interview Mike Shinoda at one point. Didn't get very far. Public speaking fee is $250,000. I imagine it's not actually that for an interview. I imagine he's probably cheaper. However, yeah, getting a hold of someone like Mike Shinoda is almost impossible. I would have loved to have had a conversation with him about some of the stuff leading up to this, but you know, I'm 600 subscribers. I'm never going to talk to Mike Shinoda. So listen, thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time. To Honey, Barat, Lil Nick, to Michael, to Hadda Shrooms, to Jelen, to Nixon Music, to Charlie. Thank you all. I appreciate you commenting. It's nice to meet you too, Michael. I appreciate you leaving comments and giving your insight there and asking some good questions. And yeah, to kind of touch on last thing, I always say this at the end of the video, and it's because I really do mean it, because I don't know most of you and I'll never meet you probably. I sincerely hope wherever you are in the world, however you are in the world, that you are taking as good a care of yourself as you possibly can. Thank you for allowing me to share this with you. Even if you disagreed with me fervently throughout the whole thing, I appreciate you for letting me speak my mind at least. And yeah, maybe we'll see each other down the line. Maybe we won't, but either way, please do take care of yourselves. And maybe I'll see you on the next episode of The Halcyon Show.